22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. Today, and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are tuned into Black Westchester Presents, the People Before Politics radio show. This is episode 413. We got a good show for you today. Getting text messages, people trying to figure out how you want to see this, how can they see the show. We are simulcasting live on Facebook, LinkedIn, the Black Westchester LinkedIn page, YouTube, the Black Westchester YouTube page, and I believe X, Twitter, the Black Westchester Twitter page. Anybody who wants to share, you can go, if you're watching this on Facebook, just click share and share it onto your page so all your people can watch it as well on your page. I think that covers all of that. So getting into the show, before we do, a couple of quick things I wanted to shout out. Shout out to Union Baptist Church in White Plains, Greenberg, White Plains. They had a great chronic health prevention seminar yesterday with our brother, Dr. Cedric. You've seen him on the show. Damon's also had him speak at Mount Vernon Public Library before for a health fair. Great informative information. It was really great. So I just want to give them a shout out for doing that. Of course, I went out yesterday after I went to the health fair, and I went to the Dole Center and I placed my vote. I have voted. I'm going to tell everybody early voting started yesterday. Get up, get out, and vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. That's up to you. But vote. It's not important that you just vote. Check on all your neighbors, your family members, the elders in your community. Make sure that they have a ride and a plan to vote. And if not, help them get to the ballot. It's very important election. And make sure you flip the ballot over. There is 2 propositions. We went over that in the last show, last week or the week before, the importance of the propositions and voting for them. So make sure you vote for those. Couple other things. Again, shout out to the New York Liberty. Brought the first professional basketball championship to New York since 1973 when the Knicks won last. So shout out to them. They won their first championship. Yankee fans, we still holding out. But Yankees is down 2-0. It's not too late, but we're gonna see what happens. Unfortunately, we didn't get the Subway Series we wanted, the Mets and the Yankees, but Yankees are still holding it down. Still have a chance, but they are down 2-0. They lost yesterday. And the Knicks season just started. And yes, while we got wiped out when we played the champions in the first game, I'm so happy in the results of the second game when we played Indiana Pacers, who are the ones who knocked us out the playoffs. And the person who tried to play Reggie Miller, he came with the Reggie Miller sweatshirt and everything about the Knicks choking and all that. He was held to 0 points. He did not score a point in the game. the Knicks held Indiana under 100 points, which they've only had 1 or 2 games last year where they were held under 100 points. They were held to 98 points. So shout out to the Knicks. They play again tomorrow. They play Cleveland. Elmsford, Donovan Mitchell will be at the Garden with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that's the next game for the Knicks. So I'm sure there was other things, but I just wanted to get that out the way. We have a big show today. All week, I was getting calls. Shout out to the Denzel Washington School of the Arts. They had the Battle of the Band Thursday night. Great event. They had bands coming from Brooklyn, from New Jersey, from Wine Dance, Long Island. Of course, the Denzel Washington band performed. It was great. It was excellent. So shout out to the Denzel Washington School of the Arts. So all week long, I've been getting calls because the Mount Vernon Steam Academy has started a policy of patting down students. They all come in one area, they come in one entrance, and they all get patted down. And parents have reached out to me, at least 1 or 2 board members who don't want their names mentioned today have reached out. One of my members of the Mount Vernon NAACP who is in the pat downs, David Patterson, they go through the scanner, they get one, and they are getting physically pat down. So yes, pat downs is what we're talking about. David Patterson just asked that question. Latoya Anderson, she's a member of the PTA. She wrote a letter to the principal asking why can't they just do the wands. We're going to go over all of that. And this thing, I did some research. There is a Supreme Court ruling that gives schools the discretion to do pat downs and searches like that if they have reasonable suspicion. The question is searching every student reasonable suspicion? So we're going to cover all of that today. We have the Mount Vernon City School District acting superintendent. She will be on today. We have Erica Peterson. She will be representing the PTA. We have a couple of other people that she's bringing with us. I think Dr. Kim has a in-house counsel. Hold on. I have one person that's having problems. Okay. Yes. Okay. I have, I also reached out to a friend of mine who is a civil rights attorney, Mayo Bartlett. Many of you knew he represented Kenneth Chamberlain in several other cases. So just to talk about the legality of it. So we're going to have a courageous conversation today about this whole situation of pat downs, whether there's a violation of students' Fourth Amendment rights, et cetera, et cetera. So let me start off. So this went out to students, to parents on Monday, the 24th. Greeting Mount Vernon Steam, parents, guardians, students. To enhance safety at Mount Vernon Steam Academy, modifications were made. I have to read it from my email so it's bigger. Modifications were made to the entry protocol. 1, all students now will enter through the main entrance effective October 21st, 2024, which was Monday. 2, males and females will be separated by assigned doors at the main entrance. 3, a pat-down search will be conducted by safety officers based on gender. Male safety officers will pat down male students and vice versa. 4, book bags will be checked by hand and x-ray machine. 5, students will go through the metal detector. 6, students will sign in. It is highly recommended that students arrive before 7:40 to prevent congestion at the main entrance. This went out to parents, and that's when my phone started ringing. I got a lot of calls. So then we talked about it as I'm the vice president of the Mount Vernon branch of the NAACP. So we talked about it in the executive committee, and one of our members, Latoya Anderson, who is a parent and who is is a member of the PTA council, I believe. She sent the principal a letter, and let me pull that up to paint the picture for you. Okay, and she gave me permission to read this, so I will read this to you. Dr. Pierce, that's the principal. I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing to discuss the current practice of pat-down searches of students at Mount Vernon Steam Academy, particularly as it relates to their comfort and dignity. While I recognize the importance of maintaining a safe school environment, many students express discomfort with being touched during pat-down searches. I would like to propose the use of handheld wands as an alternative. This method would allow for effective screening without the need of physical contact, ensuring that students feel respected and secure. Utilizing wands could help alleviate concerns among students, particularly those who feel vulnerable and anxious about being touched by the safety officers. It is critical that we prioritize not only safety, but also the emotional well-being of our students. I encourage you to consider this alternative and explore its implementation as a means of fostering a supportive and safe school environment for all. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I look forward to your response. Sincerely, Latoya Anderson. The principal got back. Trying to not show the email addresses. Good afternoon. Thank you for your concerns. However, based on our experience, wands are ineffective in detecting non-metal objects. Vapes, devices, and marijuana are often concealed in non-metal containers, which mask the odor and prevent detection. As a result, pat-downs will be conducted as part of our safety measures. This method is more effective in identifying hidden weapons, drug paraphernalia, and vaping devices. We value open communication and appreciate your continued support as we implement strategies to maintain a safe and drug-free environment for our students. Dr. Christopher S. Pierce, principal of the Mount Vernon Steam Academy. So I wanted to share all of that to set the mood. So I reached out to Dr. Kim. Yes, the email is addressed are public knowledge and on the district website, but I just, I didn't need to show it for you to show the letter. I had a conversation with Dr. Kim Smith, who's the acting superintendent, and I sent an invitation through her to Principal Pierce, who said he was unable to make it. So I'm getting ready to start the show with our panel today. Welcome Erica Peterson. I said Pierce, sorry, Peterson, who's representing the the PTA. Royce Russell, who Dr. Kim invited as member of her cabinet, I think she referred. Mayo Bartlett, who is a civil rights attorney, good friend of Black Westchester. And when I have legal questions and stuff, this is my go-to. This is the brother right here. And just a little bit, when there's a DA race every year, all candidates check in to see if he's running, because they're not going to run if he runs. But he's not running. But that's just to give you an idea of who this guy is. And Dr. Smith is here, but she has to turn on her camera. And as soon as she do, I will put her on the screen. I do have a parent who may chime in later. There she goes. Welcome to the show, Dr. Smith. Let's see if I can switch this around. I'm trying to get a better view. No, I'm not getting it. I'm trying to make everybody bigger if I can. That's not working. Okay, so anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. You see me playing around. Let's just get right into the conversation. So my first conversation was Dr. Smith. Welcome to the show. I shared the concerns that people were having, and I would like to give you the first word.
Thank you so very much. Well, I would like to have the first word and state that the Mount Vernon Steam Academy ranked as top 25 public school in Westchester County. And it is in the top 6% public school in the state of New York. And according to the public school review, With math and reading language arts tests between 85% and 89%, it outpaces New York State average by 40%. STEAM also scored higher than 71% reading and 79% math proficiency scores in Westchester. And the Mount Vernon Steam Academy is ranked number 261st highest public school out of 4,377. You can clap for that.
Okay. Yeah. And before you go on, I wanted to say, I was going to mention all of that, but that made me even more concerned that this school that is ranked the top 25, and these are our scholars, these are the ones being patted down every day. Where I'm told that this doesn't happen in all the other high schools in Mount Vernon as well. So why are our scholars being the ones patted down?
So, since I have the first word on the subject, that's not accurate. Our other schools are patting down students as well. So what happened at STEAM, the principal during our principal's meeting brought in a bag full of all the drugs that's now entering, and it's becoming alarming. And it's so ironic because it's the students that you would not expect. So people will say, why don't you just identify the students that most probably would be users? They haven't been able to do that because they're scholars, the students that do well is the ones that's bringing in these drugs. And this is a conversation. And the reason I say that is because I think that we're all here to advocate for students. We want the STEAM, like the rest of our high schools, to be a safe place for all of our kids. I think we would be remiss, and you might agree with this, that if they bring fentanyl into the building and a couple of students die, then you would say, what did we do and why haven't we done anything at all? So we did have our Maxine Coles-Wilshire speak to the board in terms of drugs. There's also a survey that's going out. They completed a survey, and the survey is going out to all students because we want to address what's happening right now. It hasn't yet happened at STEAM, but in our other buildings, students are leaving in ambulance using particularly those chocolates. They're getting high with that, and they're having adverse effects, and they're becoming real sick, and they have to go out in an ambulance. So from our perspective, we just want this to be a safe place. And I'm here to have a discussion. I have to say that not one parent contacted me on the subject. And as far as I think you gave a date after the fact regarding when Christopher Pierce sent out that letter. He sent it out the week before.
It was. I just said it as of it's starting October 21st. I don't know.
Yes, but
when the letter was
he sent out a letter to parents before that. Mm-hmm. Now, what our concern, like I said, is keeping students safe. They do go through the scanner, but the scanner, like Dr. Pierce indicated, it detects weapons, but it does not detect drugs. And in the bag that he showed us, that some of the drugs are coming in these plastic and vaping and all these other things that cannot be detected by a wand. So that if in fact it did, that would be helpful. And so, like I said, we want our students to be safe. We want our students to understand also the damage and the ramifications of using some of these drugs. A lot of our students believe that with marijuana being legal in the state of New York, that they have privy to it. But I want them to all understand, not under 21. It's still illegal for students.
I do want to say one thing before we move on. Two things. This is going to be a courageous conversation. I want everybody to come to be heard, but I want also everyone to come to hear. And if we ever get to a point where anybody's talking over anybody, I will just mute you. So we're going to try to give the speakers who's speaking their respect. Now, Dr. Kim, when you told me that you didn't get a lot of calls, and my response to you was the same as I told the Mount Vernon Police Commissioner and the Mount Vernon Police Chief. I get more calls than you would because they're going to contact me before they contact you. Some don't know to contact you, and some don't have any. They don't have any. They don't think the school's going to do anything or whatever. So I'm usually, as the editor-in-chief of Black Westchester, I usually get these calls. Same thing like with the police department. If you're violated by the police, you're not going in the police department to complain. You're going to call me. So it doesn't surprise me that I get more calls than you do. I wanted to give Erica Peterson, who's representing. Now, are you the PTA president, or I don't know? I don't want to misrepresent your position. So.
That's right. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm the PTA president for Mount Vernon High School. I also sit on the council of PTAs for Mount Vernon as a secretary. So, and you're correct. I get a lot of phone calls from parents that they don't necessarily call the district. So I totally agree with you on that.
Okay. So now, what you've heed about this? I wanted to give you a chance to speak on this, the process and what.
Yes. So. It was reached out to me because they know I deal with the high school. And I remember when it first started at the high school, I contacted our principal there to make sure that I said, are all children or students getting searched? And they said, no, it's a random. They're getting random pat downs. So random pat downs are happening to students, who have past offenses that, have brought in things, have, gotten involved in fights, things like that. They're not patting down every single student that comes into the building. So when I found out about the STEAM Academy, about that, and I said, are you sure it's every student? And they were like, no, Miss Pearson, it is. So yesterday I had the chance to speak to about 8 STEAM high schoolers. And I mean, some cream of the crop students. And I say, hey, listen, are you guys, when you go in this week, getting patted down? And they said, yeah, it started on Monday. And I said, you guys too? And they said, yes, Miss Pearson. They check our pockets. They go in our pockets. And I was just like, what? So, for me as a parent of African-American children, as a parent of African-American boys, particularly having a procedure like this on every student is alarming to me. Students' Fourth Amendment rights, there's cause for, if it's a reasonable cause, then the child can get searched. Not every single student getting pat down. I think that is excessive when it comes with that.
So the first thing I did was I looked up, I guess whatever laws there are, or because people are using words like Fourth Amendment violations and violations of civil rights. So that's why I brought my brother Mayo Bartlett on, because this is what he does. And, I never step out of my position. I won't be talking about some legal things that I don't know what I'm talking about. So I brought a person in who's well to speak about that. Is this, which is a concern, is this a violation of students' Fourth Amendment rights? Because what I did find was a Supreme Court ruling that said that schools had a certain amount of discretion to conduct searches on if they had reasonable suspicion. And everybody's telling me this has happened to every student in Mount Vernon Steam Academy, so that can't be reasonable suspicion of every student. And again, kudos to Dr. Kim for the announcement of the top 25 school. These are our scholars. You know what I'm saying? These are supposed to be that school. So it concerned me more. So on a legal or on that, as far as violations, I wanted you to speak. Is this any kind of a violation or anything like that? Or?
Well, generally, once you go into a school setting, a public school setting in particular, you don't have the same constitutional rights that you'd have if you were outside of that setting as an adult, or even outside of that setting as a young person. So generally, in order to have somebody search, without consent, the police or the authority, certainly the police, would need a belief beyond a probable cause in order to determine whether they can search you. you have a lower standard in school. It's just reasonable suspicion. But reasonable suspicion doesn't mean you just go in because you feel like it. That doesn't mean that there's a random search. In fact, a random search is the exact opposite of reasonable suspicion or probable cause. It means that out of the 5 of us here, you don't have a good faith belief that any one of us has done anything, but we're going to randomly search 2 people. Okay. And maybe you're going to search, maybe you're searching Royce today, me tomorrow. It could be anybody for any reason. So it's a random search. It's similar to what we had in New York City with the stop and frisk, where you cast a wide net, you stop everybody you feel like stopping. And again, because a kid made a mistake in the past doesn't mean that that kid now should be subjected to searches for the rest of their educational career. So in my estimation, the way it's implemented is a clear violation of constitutional rights, but also it's ineffective. The other thing is this, look, I've been doing this for quite some time. I know that Royce has as well. And, it always fascinates me as a former prosecutor, I believe Royce as well, right? And as a former prosecutors, who went in and worked to protect the community every day, prosecuting people each day, trying to determine what makes sense, to listen to current prosecutors try to justify the searches and to justify what we have and the penalties that people get quite often for nothing. Okay. I'm always shocked to find that, especially as a guy that doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't use anything. I'm of the mindset I'd love, if we're going to go down this road, let's just have random searches of every single person, period. So that when all of us go outside our house, we're going to be randomly searched. If you live in Scarsdale, your kid's going to be randomly searched. And guess what? If you find drugs on that kid, they're not going to go to the Ivy League school that they were going to get into. And that might actually reduce the use of drugs at Ivy League schools, because apparently Ivy League schools are twice as likely to have drug usage as other schools. But somehow that doesn't happen. If a kid passes out in a wealthy district on the yard, nobody's searching them to see if they had drugs. And those are the people that go on to be considered for our Supreme Court. And those are the people that go on to become our elected officials who take these tough stances against regular people. So is it a problem that we have such a permissive culture at this point in terms of narcotics use? Yes. But I'm the guy also that advocated that nobody should go to jail for marijuana. At the same point, you have to have reasonable and responsible use. And that's with all of our rights and freedoms, which we tend not to pay attention to that part of it. It's simply, I can do it, therefore I will. But the way to address that is through education. It's not through stopping and frisking kids randomly or stopping and frisking every kid. You can't do that either. If you have a particular child who you believe has done something wrong or maybe doing something wrong, then you can go forward and you can articulate it. But you have to make sure you can articulate it. And I'm saying that as a guy that got stopped driving my mother's old Chevy Caprice Classic on Central Avenue in Yonkers. I'd get stopped, it wasn't unreasonable in my mind. I didn't think that it was something wrong getting stopped every couple of weeks. And later I learned that that was all unconstitutional. So I don't think we want to create a feeling in our young people that the school district or the government or whoever is perceived to be in power can't be trusted. And I think that this is one way that you can get there. And going back to what AJ said earlier, there's a reason that he gets these calls and that the call doesn't come to the school district and doesn't go to the police, because he's trusted. And it's not a knock on the district or the police or anybody individually who works there, but realistically, they're not. And that's based on a history of interactions. That's based on being treated in a disproportionate way. And again, we don't have this happening in Edgemont or Scarsdale or Bronxville. Kids are not being searched. And those kids use probably more drugs than the kids in Mount Vernon, because quite often drug usage is a direct correlation to your ability to have disposable income. So if you're not worried about where you're going to go to buy those $200 sneakers, you're probably coming up with drugs. And I remember as a prosecutor finding drugs we didn't know about that sometimes wealthy people had, because regular, people didn't have access to ecstasy at that time. Nobody knew what it was. They didn't have all these prescription pills that they got from their parents or that a doctor was willing to give them. So I just think there's a much better way to actually implement it. And when you look at what these policies do to people, I don't know exactly what the disciplinary process would be, but I can only imagine that if you're found to have narcotics or weapons or anything else, that you're probably going to be out of the school. You're going to have some disciplinary record that follows you as you try to move forward to college or to school, if you don't get arrested. So these things have intergenerational impacts. It's not
Right.
simply I interacted with Mayo and he had this and we talked to him about it and we dealt with it in an appropriate way. There's going to be a mark on that on me. I'm probably not going to college. I'm probably not here having this conversation with you. And the search for drugs is very different than the search for weapons. So if a wand can detect a weapon, and it's not going to detect every weapon because people can go home and print a weapon. We know that now on a 3D printer, but it'll detect a lot of them. Then the wand, I would think, would be where you would want to go. And even then, you have to have some expectation that that person has a weapon.
I want to give I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to give my brother Royce, because he's the in-house counselor, if I'm not mistaken. I wanted to give him an opportunity to speak, I guess, for the school, for the district.
I appreciate it. And hopefully everyone can hear me. What's up, brother Dale? We don't see each other as we used to, but
good to see you.
We do. So when I hear everyone speak and I listen and I read what I have read so far, I want to make sure that we understand how English words can mean different things to different people. So when we talk about random in this circumstance, it's not random. You're going to search me today, search Erica, maybe, then skip over Dr. Smith, but then search Mayo. The word random, the way it's used in this incidence and circumstance, is that it will not be every day. Sometimes you'll come through the metal detector. Sometimes you'll come through the wand. But then it might be a Thursday where there's a pat down. And I think the ideology behind it is to ensure that we know how kids are crafty. We know how if you really want to do something, you can do something. And so having that balance that what works today is not going to work tomorrow. We've seen in Lincoln, we've seen in other schools that folks bring in plastic guns, folks make plastic instruments a dangerous instrument. And even in this conversation, there is a social economic implicit bias that we're speaking of, because everybody's shocked that we're talking about STEAM. Well, drugs doesn't elude anyone. Violence doesn't elude anyone, whether it's our talented 10th or the ones that we forget about. The challenges and the struggles are there. So I want to wipe that off the table when we say this is supposed to be our best, because our best have challenges as well. And the duty of care that we have as a district doesn't waver if we're talking about Mount Vernon versus STEAM. The liability issues that we have doesn't waver if we're talking about STEAM or Mount Vernon. If a kid overdoses in the school, the first thing a parent is going to say, rightfully so, is what did you do to stop that? Did you do enough? What else did you miss? How did you not see that? So as an attorney and as a person that's being responsible, I have to do the optimum. I have to find ways that we can stay ahead of the curve. We have to find ways that we can not be in the backlog and just finding out that the AOL is outdated and we should be on Gmail, or Hotmail is the next thing. We need to be ahead of it. And it's very, very hard to be ahead of it. So I want to make sure that we understand what random really means.
Now, I want to stop you real quick, because unless I'm wrong, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we're not talking about random at the STEAM Academy. It says all students, and I'll read this again. And if I'm not understanding, please. All student to enhance Mount Vernon STEAM modifications were made at the entry protocol. All students will now enter through the main entrance effective October 21st. Male and female students will be separated by assigned doors at the main entrance. A pat-down search will be conducted by safety officers based on gender. Male officers will pat down male students, vice versa. This does not say that this is random. From what I'm being told, this is happening every day for all students. That's not reasonable. And the Supreme Court ruling said reasonable suspicion. And I'm gathering from all the calls I got, searching everyone as they walk through the door is not reasonable suspicion.
So
It's also not random searches. It's searching everyone every day as they come through, and that's what we're being told is happening.
correct. So let me
Erica,
go back.
as the
Let me go
PTA,
back.
as,
Let me go back.
I just want to clarify. Erica am I speaking out of turn? Or
No, you're absolutely correct.
Okay, so I just wanted to get that because we're talking random, and this doesn't say random. This says all students.
You're 100% correct. What is written on the paper is what you have there, right? And my response in seeing that, and my response in implementing something like that, is that it needs to be random. It is not our envision that happens, and unfortunately, let's in full transparency, let's fall on the sword where it may. That communication did not cross my desk. That communication would have been more of a different mindset. And Brother Mayo could probably speak to that because he knows who I am. And so, you're talking about a person that has written a book, Constitutional Policing, Cardiac Arrest, How to Handle Unlawful Police Stops. So I would never want anyone to feel abused. And I actually enjoy when our students can cite the Fourth Amendment and can cite what their rights are. So there's no equivocation about it. That letter reads what it reads. That is unfortunate. Going forward, that is not what I think is the way that we would want to go. What I would like to do is stay ahead of the curve, which gives the imbalance that we should be giving as parents, as educators, to prevent the unforeseeable, or actually the foreseeable. Because the way the circle goes, and
so in 1985, the Supreme Court,
so the way the circle goes
in New Jersey, that a school met a reasonableness standard for conducting such searches. The High Court said the school administrators do not need a search warrant or a probable cause because they're conducting search. But what it was saying, I'm trying to get to the point. It said, again, reasonable suspicion.
Right. So if you have a teacher or you have a principal that can bring a bag to say these are all the drugs that we found in the school, without pointing out the individuals, without being discriminatory, as Brother Mayo has said, labeling a kid, ensuring that kid file is full with these discretions, then you have to be more broad-based. You have to be more wide-based. You have to be more less discriminatory based. So that's why you would implement something like this. What I will also say is that the way the circle goes, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want our kids to be safe. We want them to be in a drug-free and a gun-free, violence-free environment. But the reality is that if something were to happen to any of these kids that were drug-related, as I stated before, the first thing that would happen is, what did the school did or did not do to prevent this? The second thing that would happen is that a lawsuit will occur. The third thing would happen was that if we're found liable, then that parent will win that lawsuit. The fourth thing that would happen is that would circle right around to the taxpayers that live in Mount Vernon. And that's a very, 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 very delicate balance that one has to take in trying to do the job of keeping students safe, being able to conduct and give education in an appropriate way, prevent liability, prevent a supportive environment to a degree, but not be so supportive that we allow anything to happen, and be productive. So I understand the concerns. I understand the faux pas in communications. Is what do we want to do and how do we want to achieve that end goal?
Yeah, so again, going with the mentality of what Mayo was saying about, like, stop and frisk, by searching everyone and searching kids who are not violating anything, who are not bringing in, you're opening yourself, are you not opening the school district up to lawsuits from their parents for searching their kids for what they feel is unconstitutional, what they feel is a violation of Fourth Amendment rights, a violation of civil rights? Because in that Supreme Court ruling, I got to pull it up. It also says you know, if it's found that you don't have a reasonable search, you open yourself for a lawsuit.
So the answer to your question is how would the court define reasonable search in a school setting where they know that
reasonable suspicion is the word. I want to use the exact word they're using.
Reasonable suspicion in a setting where it could be proven that drugs still makes their way into an institution, right? What type of balance is that given? Just like when we deal with the airport, right? When you get on a plane, you actually pay to get on the plane, but you actually have to go through a metal detector. You actually have to be searched. When you go into a government estate building, you don't pay to get into that government estate building. You actually have to be searched. You actually have to be patted down. So when you talk about
the airport doesn't pat down everybody. You go through the metal detector, and if you beep, I mean, I usually fly a lot, and I'm flying a lot. If you beep when you go through, then they warn you. And if there's still a problem, and if there's still a problem, then they pull you to the side. Then they might do the pat down thing. But every person who gets on the plane is not patted down.
Right. So you're correct in that. But every person that is patted down is not wanted. Some people, they get the tickets are checked and they're moved to the side, right? And so people often wonder, why am I being moved to the side? That's discriminatory. Why am I being separated from everyone else? What did I present to this table that is different than everyone else? And really, the airplanes, the airlines, and the federal government and the state can't really provide those type of answers to you. Like, well, why is your ticket, even though it's TSA checked off, pre-approved checked off, you still have to stand to the side? That has happened in numerous occasions. So it's not always go through the metal detector and then if something is wrong, you stand to the side. But need that.
That I'm going to agree to disagree, because in my experience, I fly a lot. I used to be a rapper. I've flown all over the country, all over the world, and so I've gone through a lot of airports, and the major point, and I don't want to get away from that, is the call that I'm getting is that all students are being searched and patted down and physically, not nobody, the metal detectors. Now I'm class of 84. I got through before y'all had metal detectors. We didn't have metal detectors in my high school. That came after me. But the metal detectors, and then the wand. But the problem is the patting down. I've heard from parents, and I've heard from students who I can't bring on the show, and I can't use their names because I don't have their permission, that they felt violated.
And I
know what I'm saying?
I think we're talking about two different things and several different things. The feeling of feeling violated, right? The feeling of feeling that I have to go through this extra step. Why do I have to now go through this extra step that I did not have to go through before? That is a feeling that no one can challenge. That exists 100%. No matter what I say, that is a feeling that exists, right? But the feeling that you had before there was metal detectors and before there was wands, there was a feeling of, why do I have to go through this? There was that same feeling. There was like, why do I have to go through this? Everyone in Mount Vernon wasn't carrying guns, or everyone in whatever school wasn't carrying objects. Everyone in every school was not carrying drugs. But on a general basis, in order to have some symmetry, in order to move forward, these things were implemented to prevent that. Now we're talking about things that are concealed, that are in plastic, that the metal detector doesn't pick up. You're not talking about the sophistication of maybe the airport where they can detect every little round object where you can see, and there's an X-ray machine and you can stop. You're talking about walking through a metal detector. Actually, the student empties their bags themselves, right? In a self-search, they would go through their own pockets. You're not talking about that. If I take a wand and I go through your back and I go through your front and it doesn't ring, that doesn't mean that you don't have a vape machine. That doesn't mean that you don't have a tube of marijuana. What I'm saying is that it is very delicate. What I'm saying is that there's going to be impingement. And the issue is what is it worth? What is it worth? Is the impingement worth it? Is the impingement not?
I want to give Erica was patiently waiting to speak. So
if I can interject for one moment. So we have to look at
before you go, Erica, we lost Dr. Kim. I don't know if she was coming back on or not. I just want to, while you don't see her on the screen, I don't know if she had a weak signal or not, or she just blocked off, but we lost her. So I just wanted to announce that. Go ahead, Erica.
Thank you. So we have to look at the term reasonable suspicion here. And with reasonable suspicion, that means there is going to be a moderate or likely chance you're going to find some type of evidence. That's what that reasonable suspicion. So to have this being done to every single student, that's not reasonable suspicion. That is clearly it's an excess. It is unnecessary because not every single student is going to be likely to have marijuana on them or vape cartridge things. That's not unlikely. That's not likely. Excuse me. That's not likely. So to have, I'm class of 98 from Mount Vernon High School. I am the class that, due to a stabbing in the high school, we got metal detectors. And I remember, and I came from an all predominantly Caucasian private school in White Plains. And now I'm in this high school. I'm like, oh, we got to go through metal detectors now. But I don't recall us being, in like a big uproar about it. I just remember we were like, okay, going through the metal detectors for our safety. We weren't being patted down. It wasn't like that. So it's like, here we are. I only graduated 10 years ago, 30 years later. And to see that now, it's not because of, so then we also have to look at, now it's not because of weapons, it's because of drugs, and that is something, that's a whole other layer that we have to look at here. Why are our children using these drugs? Why are they bringing them to school? And it's not just in the high school, it's happening in our K-8 buildings as well. It's happening in our K-8 buildings as well. So it goes in even deeper. The fact that this principal is having his security monitors pat down every single student, I feel like it's unnecessary. Am I surprised by it, by this particular school, from this particular building leadership? No, I am not. Because the building leadership there has a history of over-disciplining students. I recall when Dr. Smith put out the listing for the schools who had suspensions. This was in June of 2022, I believe. And I remember when that came out, his school, when he was at a middle school, he had the most suspensions, and it was a disproportionate amount compared to the other buildings. So that was alarming. So then this year, I got calls about over suspension again, suspending kids 5 days. And I'm like, whoa. Why are we suspending so many kids at 5 days at a time? Like we have to be more preventative. The district as this district, we have to start being more preventative. The fact that we have high schoolers and these K-8 students bringing drugs into the building, that's concerning. And that's something we have to look at as well.
And so I would say, Brother Mayor,
I want to give Dr. Kim. We lost her, and Erica did mention Dr. Kim on releasing the list and of all the suspensions and stuff like that. I don't know if she heard that, and I don't know if she wanted to respond to that. Dr. Kim.
Hello, I'm sorry. My internet is acting out at the moment, but I was able to hear a lot of what you said. I want to go back to the airport, in which you, AJ, indicated that people aren't pat down. They do more than that. They scan you, your body scan. You go in, you stand there, and they body scan so they can see everything on your person. That's far more invasive, if you recall. And I mean, I just traveled a couple of weeks ago, and I had to go through the body scan. So what you're saying is that they may not do the pat down, and they do that too. They may do that random, but they body scan everyone so that you see exactly what's on someone's person.
So the difference, we're getting a lot of people that have asked this question. Who is training the people doing the search? When we use the airport, the TSA are trained. They're trained to do certain things. Who is doing the training of the people that will be conducting the search? And we're not talking about an airport. We're talking about a school with our students. There are two different things. And I understand what the comparison, but we're talking about a school and not an airport.
Well, I'm just bringing up what I heard you specifically say. And so I'm
Yeah.
responding to that. And so what I'm saying is, and it's great to have these courageous conversations. I have no problem with having that. And I'm not saying that we're all perfect, but what I can say, I appreciate people advocating for children. I too am an advocate. The From my perspective, we just want to make sure students are safe. I have nothing to do with Scarsdale or Edgemont. We're here in Mount Vernon, and we know that our black and brown kids face a whole different set of conditions. So I just want to say that. Now, in terms of moving forward, because that's what I think that we should talk about, I still think that we should talk about it. Maybe I heard that Ms. Peterson talked about the principal being punitive. I want to say that Mr. Peterson, to me, sorry, Dr. Pierce is doing a phenomenal job. I'm not saying that, and I also heard that Royce mentioned that the letter didn't come through his desk. It didn't come through mine either. With the first my former executive assistant sent me a copy of the letter. That's how I became aware of it, and the searches had already begun. So if we're talking about putting a system in place that people could live with, we can have that conversation. But
Well, that's where I hope we get to. That's how I hope we get to. That's where I hope we get to. I'm addressing. The point was to address what the concern was, the letter that went out, what is actually being done, and where do we go from here? Is there alternatives? To actually touching children? I just wanted to say also one concern from several kids came from, for several my parents came from. What do you so for a child that has been abused or whatever? We don't always know who those children are. The patting them down might trigger them and set them off. What do you say about stuff like that?
What I say about that is that we have to keep the main thing the main thing. We don't have an infinite matrix to delineate everything of a possibility. We here in the law, you take your plaintiff as they come. The ability to anticipate who has what, when, and where, and be able to provide for that can become infinite. And the school is there to try to do the best they can for students to teach. And this is their first gateway to come through. If there is an issue, nothing is stopping. This is not like a surprise quiz. I'm going to send my kid out there and I know that they have certain triggers. This is a communication. Then if that exists, then it could be a communication that reflects that, right? One of the things that you talk about moving forward, we anticipate and would like to have what we call self-searches, where the kids are already now asked to empty everything out of their pockets. They're already asked to go through their own school bag, right? But however, at the end of the day, some things still come in. Now, we're never going to be perfect, but from the legal side, we have to strive as much as we can to say that we did as much as we could without crossing the line. So therefore, when we're standing there and we're standing there with a parent that unfortunately something may happen to their kid because of use of drugs that maybe we could have prevented from happening on our campus, in our classroom, or we should have noticed on top of what Ms. Pearson has spoken about, education, all those things they're all working on the same track. Nothing is mutually exclusive. You know, the prevention of trying to keep guns and weapons from coming in is the same track to try to keep guns from coming in. The experience of having like, hey, look, I'm class of 1984 as well, right? I missed the whole metal detector situation. You got stabbed, you got stabbed. You smoke, you smoke. We evolve, we try to learn, we try to teach, we try to prevent. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's all we ever going to try to do. We're going to hit, we're going to miss, and then we're going to hit again.
I want to bring to we have another guest on, Brenda L. Crump. She was a former board member and is always advocating for children. And I think she had a couple of things she wanted to say. So welcome to the show, Brenda.
Former Trustee Crump, how are you today?
I am well, Acting Superintendent Dr. Kim Smith. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. So I'm just chiming in late, so I don't know how much you have covered. But one thing, well, not one thing, a few things I want to say is that right off the bat, I, as a parent of 7 children that have gone through the Mount Vernon City School District, would not want my children pat down. I would inform, enlighten, educate, and empower my children with their rights in writing that they would have on them, and they would tell people no, that they don't want to be pat down, and they would share that information with their fellow students. Also, I would, as a parent, I would be at the board meeting with my children and with some other children and other parents. I would like to know where our student government, because we're talking about STEAM and none of us go to STEAM, but what are the children at STEAM saying? What are the parents at STEAM saying? What is the PTA body saying at STEAM? What is the student government saying at STEAM about what's happening? Also, I want to bring up the fact of something good and positive in this district, and I'm not sure if it's still occurring or not, and that is the PBIS, the Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports. Patting down children is not in line with that. And children are so creative now that when they know they're going to be pat down, and I think it's probably been said already that they get creative as to where they put things. So the patting down, how effective is that going to be? Are you going to find some things? Yes, but how effective is it going to be? And then you have to look at, so for that, whatever amount of effectiveness you have, what's the flip side of that to doing that to children's, their mental health, their psyche, their well-being, for, I believe what has been mentioned, for all those who are doing right, which is, I believe, is the majority of our children in our district. It's the majority who are doing what they are supposed to do. So for them to be on that track of a pipeline to prison mentality, where we go through metal detectors, where we go through being wand, and now we're going through being pat down, that is that pipeline to that. So I want to also know from Dr. Smith and the district as a whole, so where, and Dr. Pierce, so where is PBIS in this decision to pat down all of the children?
So if PBIS still exists, for the most part, it's in all of our schools. So that when you say it's not in line, I can't agree with that. It's not in conflict either. So what I can say, we have to try many methods in which to reach our students. But I would say to you, if we did random pats down, would you object if your child was pat down randomly? Most people would have more of a problem that you've isolated and singled out their child as an individual for random pat downs. When everyone's pat down is a little different than saying, okay, Brenda Crump, we're patting you down today. And the question becomes why? And it could be that they feel they have some suspicion. And like I indicated when I initially came on, ironically, it's the kids that you would not pat down that also are bringing drugs into the school. They're bringing in drugs. Students are coming to school intoxicated and under the influence, and parents have to be called as a result of that. So all of that is going on right now.
Okay, and
I wonder before you go, Brenda, we did ask this question, and then several people watching are asking, who is training the individuals that are doing the patting down? Are they being trained to do this? That's a question that keeps coming up. So I just wanted to see if we can address that.
So in order to get your license as a security person, you have to be trained. You have to be trained, and there is some concerns about students being touched, and I understand all of that. But there comes a time that sometimes that have to happen.
Okay, and I want to go back to. I keep hearing the word random. I keep hearing the word random. Okay, 1 second. I keep hearing the word random. What we were dealing with was reasonable suspicion in the wording of the Supreme Court as far as violation of Fourth Amendment, which has been brought up. And that we have not addressed and we have not got to. We're talking about random. We're talking about a bunch of other things, but the reasonable suspicion, you have the power to do it if you have reasonable suspicion. So that, and we're not.
I want to just jump in there. And I'm sorry, sir, I forgot your name, but I believe that your counsel mentioned that the district is not violating the law. We're within our right to search students. He doesn't necessarily agree with it, but he said it's not a violation of the Fourth Amendment. So it's something that can happen. It's his opinion that it may not stave off students bringing in drugs, but it's not a violation. And I've seen things like these people are going to get sued. If it's not a violation and you're not committing any crime or any act thereof, I would find that hard to believe.
Well, I don't know that it's not a violation.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know that it's not a violation. What I can tell you is in order for it to not be a violation, there should be a policy, number one. There ought to be a written policy that indicates exactly what's happening. That policy should be shared with all of the parents and students in the school. New York City has a policy, for instance, and you in New York City have the ability to opt out of being scanned, even going through the metal detector. And then there are other protocols in place. But if it's random, it still has to be based on, well, first of all, when school districts are able to do random searches, let's say if there's a bomb scare and they can randomly search the entire student population, but they have to have a valid reason to do so. Weapons is one thing. Usage of drugs is an entirely different thing. And when you start to look at usage of narcotics, number one, kids are going to get narcotics all over the place. There's no way of stopping a child from getting narcotics if they intend to get narcotics. The other issue, as I see it at least, is we're not looking at what happens to a student who's searched and nothing's found. So if you tend to get stopped, what do the other students think about you? It's no different than if the police randomly pull me over and put me up against the wall. Well, anybody who's watching me, all they know is that I've got stopped by the police and I'm being searched. They have no idea about anything else, and that's going to impact how people view me. With respect to the use of narcotics, that's an educational issue. And I can tell you that, again, if you don't have a reason to believe that a kid has narcotics, why are you stopping that kid and why are you frisking that kid? So I'd love to know what the statistics are. Out of the kids who've been stopped, what percentage of those kids had narcotics or had a weapon or had anything? And then the other thing is that we know that people transport drugs by ingesting drugs. Are we going to start doing cavity searches of kids to make sure that nobody ingested narcotics so they can pass it in the bathroom and give it to somebody? So, I mean, they do that in prison sometimes. I don't know that that's what you would want your school setting to be. I am, on the other hand, encouraged that we're having this conversation because I think everybody's here in good faith to try to find a workable solution. But there are a lot of things that I think have to be considered. And there are a lot of school districts which have attempted to grapple with this issue, and some have done better than others. So my suggestion would be, and I'd be happy to work with you, is to work and involve the community as well, realizing everybody's not going to be happy, but to try to find a solution that's a good solution. Because to me, 5-day suspensions tells me you're probably not going to the college you want to go to. So whether you're one of the top students in the country or not, that's going to hurt you. And the other people who maybe aren't going to college, some of them, by the way, might be the brightest kids in the school. Just because you don't have parents that can help you maneuver through the process doesn't mean you're not the smartest kid or the one with the most potential. I would love for us not to be dismantling kids by policy. I don't think that's anybody's intention, but sometimes that's what ultimately happens. So if the district can look at someone and have a good faith belief that that kid has a weapon or drugs, then by all means, then go ahead and you can speak to that kid. Probably it's better to ask for that child to go somewhere than to do that openly in front of everybody else, because that's humiliating. And it's also it's just sending the message to everyone else that this is a kid that needs to be stopped and searched. And the aftermath is not communicated. It's not going to be an announcement that, hey, we searched Mayo, but he's clear. That's not going to happen. So those are things that I think we have to really think about. And again, when we talk about narcotics, we're in a country where JP Morgan Chase had a barge that had 20 tons of cocaine on it that were worth $1.3 billion, and nobody got arrested. Jamie Dimon is going to possibly be in the cabinet if Kamala Harris wins. TD Bank just paid a $3 billion fine. Our kids are criminalized over grams and ounces of things, okay, or pills, single pills. And so is the issue really that we don't want people to have drugs, or is it, is it something else? And again, I don't find, and I understand you're talking about Mount Vernon, but I'm looking at kids all over, and I don't see similar things happening elsewhere. I mean, if it's an issue of violence, I don't really get a lot of pushback. If somebody says you've had stabbings or shootings in the school, most of the time the parents aren't concerned about, taking safeguarding measures. But when we're talking about finding a vaping pen or finding possible drugs, maybe marijuana, look, if a kid's smoking marijuana in the school hopefully is able to determine that. If a kid comes into school smelling like marijuana, that's something you can determine. If you find prescription pills or anything else or some kind of other narcotic, then absolutely you deal with that. But you have to have a reason to believe that that kid is involved in that. It can't simply be, a one size fits all. And I don't know the answer to this, but if you have the statistics, I'd love to know how many kids actually were found with substances or with weapons that were searched, as opposed to those who were searched and had nothing.
Just speaking from a couple of things that you said, I do agree with some of what you said, but some of what you said also is somewhat distorted, right? In that our job is to try to maintain what we can maintain in our institution. So if a kid swallowed drugs and comes in and decides to go to the bathroom and defecate and release drugs, at the end of the day, someone's going to say, how did the drugs get in? And they're not going to, and the kid is not going to say, I digested drugs and I went to the bathroom and released it. What they're going to say is that, how did the drugs get in? And at the point where we can try to impose or to have a part in preventing the drugs from coming into the institution of education, which is preventing the kid from learning and possibly preventing someone else being introduced and or learning, we have to do what we can do within reason. So that point needs to be underscored. Two, any kid that feels out of sort because they have to be put to the side, and we're talking about school. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. I know you're a cheater. I know you dating Jane and dating Susie at the same time. I know you can't play basketball. I know you want to be on the basketball team. This is not where you're driving down the highway and I drive down and I see two black males standing and I'm like, those could be my clients next week, or what are they standing there for? We know when you walk through that metal detector, there's a couple of things that metal detector is there to do. One, to find weapons, and or two, to try to find drugs. And to the spirit of Royce got stopped today, I don't know if you ever get around, well, there is an editorial on page number 12 that says, no, everything was fine with him. I don't know if you ever get to that, because we're in the institution of learning. We can't be everything for everybody. We're a little bit to everybody. When I coach basketball, you don't drop your kid off for daycare. You drop him off so he could play or learn how to play, right? And I'm sure parents are doing their part before the kids get there, but kids are clever. Ms. Peterson had mentioned, things evolve when she graduated. I graduated in 84. Things do evolve. Kids will find creative ways to do creative things. And we have to try to meet them to a certain degree. And we're always going to be behind the 8 ball, but that doesn't mean we don't try. That doesn't mean that we don't really endeavor to do the right thing. Now, I think there's a lot of weight behind what I think her name is Brenda. That's all I can remember. Behind what are the people that are actually playing for the basketball team saying about the coach, right? What are they saying? Like, is practice too hard, or what's going on there? That can be the level of communication that we have to figure out where the medium ground is. And once again, when I talk about the word random, is random in procedures, not random in person. That means today might be a pat down. Tomorrow is going to be you go through the metal detector. The next day is going to be a self-search. And that's how you kind of move along the way to say, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So the trick I tried yesterday may not work today. So I just want to make sure that's how I'm using the word random as far as people in person. I know, I practice in that area. That I see you and I in court when we were the only two in court, right? So I would not look at it from that perspective. And at the end of the day, like you said, we're trying to solution this because we're entrusted with kids. We're entrusted to educate them. But then again, we're the first wall and the first entity that gets, why did you let this happen?
So
I think that if you have kids that have not done...
One second, Mayo. So there's some people that just checked in. I'm just going to reintroduce everybody. Right now, who I am. Below me in the picture is Erica Peterson, president of the PTA in Mount Vernon, in the high school. Mount Vernon High School. Mount Vernon High School. In the yellow sweatshirt is Royce Russell, who is in-house counsel for the Mount Vernon City School District. In the suit to his right next to him is Mayo Bartlett, civil rights attorney. Below him, with the glasses, is Dr. Kim Smith, who is the acting superintendent of Mount Vernon School District. And next to her is Brenda Crump, who is a former school board trustee who is a lifelong child advocate. So I just wanted, because when the two attorneys were talking, people didn't know who y'all were, especially y'all two. And I wanted to reintroduce everybody for those who just tuned in. This is Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show. And this is a discussion on what went out that is a policy at the Mount Vernon Steam Academy of patting down all children as they enter the school. I know there's been a lot of other conversations, but this is what the conversation started with. So this is what we're addressing, not reasonable, not randomness. It just now you and Mr. Russell actually said, Attorney Russell actually said that this didn't come across his desk and he wouldn't have worded it that way. And what you said about changing things up from one day to another and the randomness, that's one thing, but that's not what we have physically right now, from what I'm being told, unless I'm wrong. All children walking in are patted down as of right now. That's what is the thing that is getting people upset. I interrupted Brenda because I wanted to get back to the reasonable suspicion, and I wanted to at least give her a chance, and then we're going to go to Erica. Go ahead.
And I'm sorry, Brenda, I didn't remember your last name, so forgive me.
Okay, Brenda L. Crump, parent of 7 children, now 6, and all of them gone through the Mount Vernon City School District. What I would have liked to have seen and would like to see, as the aforementioned groups that I named, some discussion with those groups. I would have liked to see, I've heard that we would be surprised at the amount of drugs or weapons that were found, about communication to the body in that building, informing, enlightening, educating, and empowering the community in that building of what you have found, and then working for solutions that's going to work with the whole child, or all the children, in reference to their mental health and well-being. The mental health and well-being, I would have liked to see where we're working on positive solutions, positive behaviors, positive support to the negative. I think it's, once again, it's very important about all of those constituents working with them. I would have liked to see where there were some meetings with the body in that building, and then some warnings, some levels, because even within the school district code of conduct, there are level of warnings for different infractions. So rather than just come out with this search of all children, but informing that body of what has taken place, getting ideas and suggestions about how to address it. And once again, it's very important. It's not the majority of our children. So we have to be careful with what we do with the majority and how we're making them feel. And then for the fact of the school being in the top 25, let's celebrate that. But this is like a cloud, a stench on that positiveness of the school, because yes, some people might say, oh, top 25, they're doing well right now. But hold up. They're searching all the children. They're patting them down. No, I don't want to be involved in that. I don't want my child to have that mental work on them. I don't want them to deal with them, make my child unhealthy mentally, emotionally. So that's what I'm asking, that we look at. And as Dr. Smith said, okay, we're flushing it out now. AJ did the outline, but at some point in this conversation of going forward, what I would like to see is the searches of all children stopped, because it is a mental health impact on our children. And so we're dealing with the whole child, not just dealing with the academic educational piece of the child, but the whole child. I would like to see that stop. I would like to see those name mentioned bodies in that building, conversations being had, committees and groups coming up with positive behavior interventions and supports. Because when children are also found with drugs and weapons, there's something else that's going on. So there's some support and services or whatever that's needed there. And we kind of know, sometimes we have a group of children that we know who maybe are involved in gangs, and we know who kind of just continue with drugs or what have you. And you want to meet with those families and give support and services to those families. But again, lastly, just looking at the whole child and not penalizing the whole child, because what's happening to the children who are doing right? You're saying this is the treatment that I get. And again, I'll leave off. My children did attend the school when it was A.B. Davis Middle School. All of them went through there. That is not something that would be acceptable to me as a parent. And I know to my children, speaking to, at least one of them today, would not be acceptable, this searching of all the children as they enter into the building. We have to think about what we're also doing to the mental health and well-being of our children.
I want to, Eric, I'm going to ask you to hold on for a minute. I want to bring to the stage, bring to the show, Israel Williams, who is actually a parent of a child that goes to that school. And when his daughter came back and told him about the search, he had some concerns. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Thank you. Good to see everybody. Glad to have this panel, to have this very important discussion. I don't want to recap, but I do. If I have some time to speak, do I have a little bit of time?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, Dr. Smith, and
Good evening.
Good evening,
Former trustee.
Thank you, and everyone in attendance. There's a few hats I wear in this situation. I'll come in as a parent, and I'll discuss my experience last Monday at A.B. Davis. So I'm bringing my daughter to school, and my daughter, I've had zero problems with this child, and I keep my fingers crossed because she's just a great student, and she really has very high goals. She loves the STEAM Academy. And so I'm bringing her to school, and not many times I have to ask her, like, how's it going? Because it's always handled. She takes care of it. And today, on this day, she says, well, everything is good, but today is the first day of this random pat down search. So immediately I get angry because I know nothing about it. And there was an email sent Thursday, but outside of an email, a very vague email, if we're going to go through that, because I don't know, that's another issue. And going into, and my daughter's ready for school, and she has a lot of challenges ahead. And I said, you know what? I don't consent. So we walked up to the front of the building, and I asked for the head of security, and head of security came out, very nice, very professional, and I asked for the administrator. Miss Brown came out, and I believe, I'm not sure of her title. I didn't get her title at that time. I think she may be a parent liaison. And, I asked to see Dr. Pierce in relation to this matter, that I, as a parent, do not give consent on this first day of this pat down search. And Dr. Pierce was nowhere to be found. I guess he was busy. I expected him to be on the front line for something like this, something so abruptive. And I said, well, I don't agree. And, it feels like a jail. And, so what he did was he sent the parent liaison, or he sent Miss Brown, he turned her right back around. And he said, well, because I said, well, this is something I'm going to take to Dr. Smith, right? I don't consent, and I'm going to take it to Dr. Smith. I think that I know it's not approved by the board. It's too fast to be approved by the board. Who approved this? What's the process? Who's involved? And I want to know these things. And he turned the right back around. He said, well, the only way the student gets in the building is with the pat down search. I said, really, even without my consent? And she said, yes. And she said, and I told him that you're going to talk to Dr. Smith. And he said, go right ahead. So at that point, I kind of, I said, you know what, listen, because I'm not here to embarrass my daughter, right? She's here to have a great experience in this Mount Vernon school district with a lot of challenges ahead. So, said, okay, well, we're going to have to do what we need to do to get her to class. So they said, okay, we're going to do it. And they went through, and I said, okay. The issue, and also just a little bit extra on that. So as soon as I do leave, because Miss Brown was pretty professional with me and very cordial and understanding. And when I do leave, I get home and my daughter's saying, well, man, as soon as you took one step through the door, Miss Brown is chastising me, saying, well, listen, it's not about you. And if I go to an airport and if I get searched, I'm okay because I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about the others. And my daughter didn't deserve that. So it's so many reasons for me as a parent to why this is wrong. And I was shocked to see that there's rationale behind it. For one, it's borderline illegal to me, unless I'm, misinformed or just miseducated. And I didn't say illegal, I said borderline legal, because I know that reasonable searches can be legal in schools. However, they have to follow specific guidelines. And one is reasonable suspicion. I think that right there is enough to where a district or board can really look at that thoroughly and say, listen, no, this is not the answer. I'm going to quote my daughter. She says, I said, well, what's your overall feeling with the pat down search after 3 days? And she said, I feel like a criminal.
Wow.
Excuse me.
Wow.
And Adrian, what's odd is that if you refer to the district's code of conduct, student code of conduct, on page 36, section 7300.06, because I like facts, it says that the board authorizes the superintendent of schools or designee, building principals or designee, and assistant principals, the school nurse, and district security officials to conduct searches of students and their belongings in most instances, with exceptions set forth below in A and B, if the authorized school official has reasonable suspicion to believe that the search will result in evidence that the student violated the law or district code of conduct. An authorized school official may search a student or student's belonging based upon information received from a reliable informant. It also says before searching a student or the student's belonging, inquiry must be made of the student by the authorized school official concerning the possession of physical evidence which violates the district code of conduct.
Right. So to me, it clearly seems to not be supported by reasons. A lot of cases, just the initial pat down doesn't seem to be supported by reasonable suspicion or probable cause from the very outset. What I'd like to know is if the board has a policy on how this procedure is to be implemented. I'd like to also know if the building has a policy on such procedures. It's just the process of it is just very abruptive. It doesn't bring in the community, to have this discussion. I think this is a very important discussion, but I'm not sure if this is I think it's the perfect timing, but I'm not sure if this is the perfect platform because it's almost like it's in-house, right? And we want to protect our dignity as well as a city, as a school district, as a community, as parents, as our students. It's a whole thing, right? There's morally, there's a whole lot wrong. And the question I would pose to everyone in support of it is, would you also consent to a pat down search of yourself? Would the administration, if I think if we're going to go with our high schools are going to consent to a pat down search, I would advise that the whole entire district be pat down before they enter any building, including the security, because I'm not sure if we're going to get to the root of the problem unless we go 100%. And that's clearly going to open the door to so much liability, so much. My daughter was already talking about, well, she didn't get touched inappropriate. No, that's not the red flag. I'm not going there. But she said her friend saying, well, the security kind of almost like she's maybe searching almost, not on her breast, but almost like finally. And she said, if that happened to me, I would call my dad. I'm saying, what is going on is my question, because there's vultures, there's every type of predator and prey around Mount Vernon that's looking for these little cracks in the wall to say, you know what, I'm going to exploit this, I'm going to expose it, and who's going to suffer? The community. And the community should have the last word with this. We should, at the end of the day. I think there was no preset to this. I think there was a forum needed. Okay, drugs, if I'm misinformed, please stop me, and if I'm, at any time. But if we're talking about drugs, what are we looking for? Is my question as well. We're looking for dime bags of weed, because you have to find those in crevices, especially for a student who knows they're about to be searched. Do you think these students are going to walk up to the building with paraphernalia or anything in their possession in their right pocket? No. It's going to be they're going to put it in the toughest place imaginable. And right there is the fine line. Why would we put ourselves in that position as a district is the question. Also, the analogy my daughter gave, which was kind of spot on. She said, it's almost like very strict parents, right? She said very strict parents almost kind of usually create sneakier kids. So they're going to find ways. There's windows, there's all types of ways. There's private parts so for that, I'm saying for the students there. Now, as far as addressing the issue, now that's another conversation, because now we got to go. Now, here's the work. I think this is what the school budget is for. I think this is what we really, if we're not really talking about professional development in this case, in this instance, because it's not just happening here. Drugs are not just here in Mount Vernon. They're everywhere. We just legalized marijuana. it's so easy. You can make a phone call and have a pound delivered to your house legally, or I don't know exactly what the standards are. So it's a different day and age. So the discussions need to be had, and things of that sort. I still do not give consent. However, my daughter must go to school. Moving forward, my 8th grade son would have liked to attend the STEAM Academy. We're not even going to be in the school district long if this persists. And I don't want to go on too much of a rant, but I do want to express my discontent. I also want to express my appreciation for Dr. Smith coming on, because there's not many superintendents I know that will even have the humbleness to actually come on this platform. Not an easy thing at all. So I missed a lot I came in late, an hour late. I'm sure there was a lot being said. I'm sure I reiterated some things that were said. And like I said, I appreciate the collaboration. I'm just, it's no way, there's no way I'll be comfortable sending my daughter to school each and every day with the pat down search. And I know that's only part of this conversation. I know the whole part of this conversation is security, and we can get to that. I think specifically we're just talking about the legalities and the parameters of this abrasive procedure. And I'd just like to get some more information on it. I'd like to hear from our council that's present. I'm sure you've kind of really kind of nailed it. I really would like to get your input on, especially the non-consensual part by me. Because I just think it needs to be clear and defined.
I do want to say, so for all those who are either just getting part of the show or didn't see the whole show, within an hour after the show is over, the video of the entire show will be on blackwestchester.com, and you can view it in its entirety. I also want to say, I told Dr. Smith this when we talked. I don't expect to end this conversation with all problems solved. But I thought because enough people came to me, this conversation obviously was not being had with the people who need to be having. So the purpose of using this platform was to bring it to the attention of our community and our leaders, that hopefully after this conversation, y'all will start working on some plans. The community will get more involved. Y'all will go to the community, whatever needs to take place. So that was the purpose of this, and identifying the problem that we are having, that a lot of people did not know of. Like I said, a lot of people did not know, that had kids going to the school did not know. A lot of people in the community don't know. So, again, thank you. I want to echo thanking Dr. Smith. She was the first person I called, and she said, when I call, she comes. She came, and she's gonna, speak for the school. And we've been doing it. We celebrate our 10-year anniversary. In the 10 years we've been doing this, a lot of leaders in Dr. Smith's position are nowhere to be found. They do not accept the invitation. They do not come. So I definitely want to bring that about. But we've heard from I definitely wanted to hear from a parent whose child just went through this. And I think it was important for Erica to speak from the PTA and the PTA council perspective. Brenda speaking from a child advocate, Brother Royce Russell, as in-house counsel, and Mayo as a civil rights attorney who could speak on it. Now we're going to continue the conversation a little bit more, but hopefully when we win this conversation, this is the beginning of a conversation, not the end. And that was the purpose for this. And I hope that's what happens with all involved, all our leaders and everybody who was in the power to make decisions here. And they involve the community in the decisions of how we move forward from here. So that being said, Erica, I know you were getting ready to speak before I interrupted you and brought Brother Williams.
Oh, excuse me. Before you speak, Erica, could I just say I appreciate the former trustees conversation. It was very heartfelt. Um, and certainly these are the things that we need to hear. And yes, there have been many people that suggested that I don't come on the air, but I think that it would be, I would be remiss if I didn't give people the opportunity to speak. I don't try to back away from courageous conversations. I think that the conversations need to be heard. We need to have these discussions. And I think that what I said basically, we're having this conversation to find a solution to the problem. You've asked some questions regarding how much. And I do want to say it's not just about drugs. You know that we had an incident in which one of those credit card guns entered the school and it was plastic. So we're focusing on drugs, but it's not really just drugs that can enter a building. And I would like to know when we meet, and it wouldn't be appropriate just to meet here today. We'll have this conversation. I think that when we meet, we have to talk about coming to a happy medium. Um, because at the end of the day, as much as parents have some objections, if something happens to their babies, it will be the district that the lawsuit would go against. So I do think that we need to have the conversations, and I am always open to having discussions. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, Erica, because I think that was
No, that's
twice.
Can I ask a
okay.
couple questions? Dr. Smith, who authorized this particular search and what's the scope of it? Is this a high school? Are all of our high schools having this implemented the same way?
Okay, so in response to your question, you know, as a head of a building, you can't micromanage staff. When things are this important and this controversial, it would be nice for us to have some kind of heads up. Dr. Pierce implemented this as a direct result with all of the drugs that was coming into the building. I can't say to you right now at this moment how much. I saw a bag full of drugs come into the building because he brought it to our principal's meeting. So what I can say, it's my understanding that this is consistent with the other building. Erica Peterson is saying that it's random. I'm not hearing that it's random in other building, but there are pat downs at the other buildings as well. So it's, so this discussion has to be a little broader than STEAM, because it's happening in our building. And I don't think that in all fairness that we could just talk about one building in isolation. We have to talk about what's happening in our buildings. And I do remember when they brought in the metal detectors, parents were appalled and they said the same thing. This is like jail. And in time, it became something that people were hopeful that would save their children. So I think that we have to have a much broader conversation. Like I said, we have Denzel Washington, we have STEAM, we have Rebecca Turner and Mount Vernon High School, and we need some continuity. Now, like I said before you came on, we had a significant amount of students that go out of the building in ambulance because, and we do tend to call the police when they identify the stores in which they buy those chocolates, and they have serious consequences sometimes of taking those drugs. I want to also say it's hard to just single out students, because some of the students that have brought in the drugs would be the students that you would least expect, that you cannot believe that this would be the student. This is an honor student. This is a good student. Not that other students are not, but if people had to say, well, which students should we target, it would not have necessarily been some of the students that brought drugs in.
Sure,
Okay.
sure. So this is being done. each building leader has implemented the pat down search in the building
Of all students
of all
upon,
students.
because I
And
think
is
we
it-
need, I think, I'm sorry, Yak, but
No, go
I
ahead.
think we really need to stay focused to what brought us here. What brought us here was information, which I believe AJ read, that all students entering the STEAM Academy were being pat down. So
Right.
let us stay focused on
Yes.
not
Yes.
singling out STEAM. STEAM was the issue. STEAM was the school that was brought forward.
Yeah.
So
And that's my issue.
STEAM, right? It's STEAM where all the children are being pat down. That's the issue.
Well, here's another
People
thing.
not disagreeing with a pat down. I don't
Yeah.
think at this moment they're disagreeing with all the students being pat down. That's the focus, and I think we really need to stay focused with that.
Well,
And direct
yes.
questions should have direct answers. At this current time, are all the high schools doing a daily all student pat down to enter the building?
That's my question.
Which requires a direct answer.
Now, Erica, you were the one that spoke on from the PTA perspective that it's not being done that way through all the schools.
No, it's correct. Correct. It is not being done uniformly like that through all the schools.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, there's clearly some issues. I just think there's where's the forum, right? Some type of forum to kind of flush this stuff out and be aware. I think like the more we kind of talk about it, the more fearful I get because my students are in the district and I feel like I don't know enough. Like I know I can't know it all and I'm not expecting to know it all. But clearly we're walking a fine line. And one thing I do know is that we as a district, we cannot search anyone whenever we want, just legally. I don't know. This is just saying it's more serious. The more we talk about it, it's more serious than I expect. I mean, it just kind of ramps up every second, and I understand the severity of it. Again, I just want to know how to move forward from the suit personally, because I do not give consent. However, my daughter does need an education. I don't want to embarrass her at all. I would like to keep this obviously between us. I would like to keep her experience as great as it has been. However, if we're going to look at virtual learning, if my family's going to bring that back until we sort this thing out, I'm open to hear what options we have there. Just move this thing forward because I'm just not, I'm not in consent.
I think that one of the things Mr. Williams mentioned is worth noting. And that's when he asked, whether the staff would be and teachers would be willing to be pat down. And I'll just tell you this, as a former prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney, that a significant amount of narcotics enters the jail through the staff.
Correct.
So right now, what we're doing may not even be, or what's being done may not even be effective. It certainly is bypassing many people who may have their own issues in terms of narcotics. And even when we go to court, there are judges who are addicted. There are lawyers and police who are addicted. If you tested them, they would fail and they would lose their jobs. They just are functional addicts. So it doesn't mean that the drugs aren't coming in that way. The other thing, and again, I definitely commend Superintendent for being here. I think this is the only way you move forward, and it has to be together. And lots of people do not do that. So I know that's been repeated multiple times, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. And hopefully this conversation is a path moving forward in a great way that helps future generations not even have to have these conversations. But it has to be a written policy. It has to be something that everybody understands. Everybody knows what to expect. The people that are implementing it know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. If you choose to have your student go there, that's great. I think it would be a tragedy if Mr. Williams moves away and takes his kids out of the school because as more people do that, then it defeats the entire purpose of having the school to begin with. And I don't think it makes sense to criminalize the kids. You're going to have enough opportunity for that as an adult later when you get pulled over and you're wondering why in the world you got pulled over. So I don't think we probably want to do that for kids. And again, when do you begin? When do you stop? I can't imagine that there are junior high school students that don't also have drugs and bring drugs into the school. But
hey, what happened?
What I would tend to think we would want to do as well is look at who's going to be, and it's been mentioned in the chat a number of times, who are the people that are doing these pat downs, if in fact that's going to happen. I think that should happen on a limited basis if you think that there's an actual reason, actual need to do that. But who are these people? Are these people, have they been cleared? Do they have a background that might put a child at risk? Do you have someone that may be a pedophile that's working there that now is in a position to pat kids down randomly? And who happens to randomly get stopped? I mean, I've had female inmates that I represented who got patted down and searched every single time, to the point where they told me don't come visit them anymore because it happened to be a very attractive young lady, and for whatever reason she always got the pat down. So I mean, there are a lot of things that we should consider. I think everybody's here again in good faith with the goal of getting it right for our kids, but it's a long conversation. It probably is something that takes a lot of meetings to try to get right, and even then it's going to be difficult. But there has to be a path forward other than saying every kid in Mount Vernon is going to get pat down just to get in the building to go to school. And again, if these kids go on to colleges, no one's patting anybody down at Harvard. Nobody's patting anybody down at Howard or anywhere else. There's not one college where you get pat down. There's not a mall where you get pat down, and there's no workplace where you go in to get pat down just to make sure you don't have narcotics. If it's for weapons, again, you have to have a reason to believe that person has a weapon. You know, I got pulled over the other day just driving my car, and the officer made it up 100%, no basis to stop me. I know he had no basis to stop me, and he knew he had no basis to stop me. And it's just me and him on the road, so he didn't make a mistake. And when I asked him, he told me I'm on my cell phone. I had no cell phone. Now, I can't look into his mind and say why I'm getting stopped. And if you had to ask me, could it have anything to do with what I look like? Okay, I'm pretty sure it probably did. But I don't think that that's healthy for our kids to go through that, you know, from ninth grade, eighth grade, whatever it is, and to know that that could happen at any given moment. And again, what are the statistics? Are the statistics showing there's the same kids being targeted over and over again? And what I get from my friends that are on the DA side of things is, oh, well, you know, you didn't get arrested. You didn't lose anything. Well, that's easy to come from somebody whose kids aren't getting pat down, you know, and who's not subject to some search. You lose a hell of a lot. You lose a ton. You lose by the kids that you grow up with looking at you and thinking you're a person that needs to be patted down. And why are you getting stopped 8 times when maybe they didn't get stopped at all? Or why are we all getting stopped if we don't really know where this bag of drugs came from?
Yeah.
We're coming to the close of the show. I want to thank everybody who participated in this conversation. Again, I'm asking all of you that this be the beginning of the conversation, that y'all go behind closed doors, whatever you have to do, the PTA council, the school board. I've seen a board member saying that the board did not approve this or ever vote on it or not. The school board, the superintendent staff, you know, and the heads of all the schools and the community, and involve the community and involve the parents in the process. And we got to do better. I understand. And Dr. Smith said to me, what do we do? Nothing? Nothing is not an option. Things are getting worse and worse and worse. Doing nothing is not an option. But, you know, there were concerns, like I said, against violations, student violations, Fourth Amendment rights and all that stuff. And I wanted to, hopefully we address some of that. And hopefully there's people that are going to come, I want to say to the community, to the parents, you have an involvement. You have more responsibility than sending your kids to school. You have more of a responsibility to be involved. It is up to you to be involved in your school's education. One of the things I like about Brenda Crump, her kids are out of the school and she's still involved. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and when she wasn't a school board trustee, she was still doing the work, you know, to educate people. So we as a community have to step up. We have to step up. We know there's some of you know what your kids are about before your kid leave the house. You be real, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying everybody, but some of y'all know. You know what I'm saying? And y'all send your kids to the school and let it be the school's problem. You know what I'm saying? So we have to do better as a community, as a whole. You know what I'm saying? And I hope that, again, this was the beginning of a conversation, and y'all take it from here and run with it and do what you got to do.
AJ, I have just another question, just as a parent.
Okay.
Dr. Smith can go, or she can. Either way, you can go ahead, Dr. Smith.
I just wanted to know about our in-house counsel. He hasn't been on for a while.
Oh yeah, he came out and came back in. Hold on, here he goes.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, my brother. I didn't bring you back in. I saw you when you came. You left and came back, and left and came back.
Don't worry. I know where Brother Mayo lives, so I'll just drop by his house.
Yeah. Any last words? Any last words from you, because we hadn't heard from you?
Yes. I really appreciate it. First of all, I empathize and I sympathize with the parent that spoke. I failed to remember your name. Sorry about that. Somebody
Israel Williams.
Ms. Williams. And I hope that somebody has a phone.
Somebody's echoing. I'm not sure if you have two things on. Somebody's echoing. Somebody has an echo. I believe it's you, Brother Russell.
Nope, I have no phone on. There we go.
Okay.
So, and I can understand Brother Mayo's analogies to a degree. I think we all serve ourselves some good that we don't go to the far spectrum of any analogy. We keep the main thing, as you have pointed out, and keep it focused. And many people have pointed out throughout the night to keep it focused. I think there is one element that is missing from the conversation, which is a very hard piece to understand and to accept, is that there is a liability and a financial piece that when I'm speaking to a parent and tell them, that we did all we can do, I want to be able to say that with all good faith. And I want a parent to be able to say, as you said, some parents know what their kids are about. Not all parents, but that never really reveals itself. Like, that doesn't come to the forefront. What comes to the forefront is that this issue happened. It happened.
Okay.
It happened on your watch, and that shouldn't have happened. And that is also a big part of this conversation. Brother Mayo spoke about people in New York declining to the search. Yes, they have to file other paperwork. They have to file paperwork saying that they would not hold the school system for any liabilities because they didn't participate in this. And that's huge from a business. We have to understand education is a business, whether we like it or not. It is a business. It is a business to be run at its optimum capacity and making sure that our kids move forward. And finances is a big part of it. And so my job, to a degree, not monolithic, but just being holistic, and I want to make sure we have this in the conversation, is that the big part of this is a liability piece. And a big part of it is I drop my kid off to you, and then I go. And what has happened when my kid is in your care? And yes, you could find drugs anywhere. I would rather have a situation where someone is saying they found the drugs somewhere rather than the person came in with the drugs. And so I just want to make sure that that's part of the whole conversation, because we would be remiss. That part is not part of the conversation in the future.
Yeah. I just have, thank you, brother. I just have three quick questions. One, luckily we've had favorable weather. Davis steps are the steepest steps in Mount Vernon. What do we do when the weather changes and they're out there in the dead of winter with snow and ice or even cold? Or do we have that? I'm just saying, maybe we don't have to answer that now. But that's a whole nother conversation. How do we proceed? Also for counsel, how about the non-consenting parent? That's a question of mine. I'd like to get some type of feedback on that legally. And also, I guess everyone feels that this is just totally legal. Does everyone? I
don't think everyone.
Can I stop? Because we have, of course, there was never going to be enough time to cover every aspect of this. In the the comment section, there's a private part that y'all two can exchange information.
Okay.
And I would like him to be able to send his questions to you as the council,
Great.
and maybe Dr. Kim if necessary, and you to be able to respond to him. And you know what I'm saying? I would like to, if we can get that going, we don't have to answer everything here.
Sure. I agree.
Going, and that was great. You can just share it publicly or you could do it privately. I wanted to give last words. I'm going in order. Brenda, I'm asking everybody to be brief. Brenda, the child care advocate, please, last words on all of this. Anything in closing that you want to bring to this conversation? Or
Yes, before we close out, what I would like to hear from the district is, are you willing to reconsider this pat down of all students entering the building and have discussions with what I said about the PTA in that building, the student government in that building, the parents in the building, the students in the building. And if I miss one of the groups that I named, that's what I would like to know before we close out is the district, after this conversation and hearing all sides and hearing other information, are they willing to reconsider this pat down of all students entering the building?
Well, I will reiterate that I'm willing to have a meeting. We could have a discussion. That I can't tell you what the outcome is going to be, but we could address this conversation. I'm open to that. I will. I don't know exactly what day. I would hope that we would have it this week, and we can come to a resolve.
Erica, last words.
I just, again, Dr. Smith has joined in on difficult conversations with us as the council, as the PTA council, about other things. And that is one thing, we can have these hard conversations with her. I do believe we are going to be following up with Dr. Smith to discuss this. And I just hope that this is just the starting point for this. And thank you, AJ, for bringing this topic and conversation to this forum so we could discuss this. And I just hope that this is going to be the starting point for conversations to be had.
Brother Russell, last words, and I'm asking everybody to be brief. I got to say that, especially with you lawyers, so
Hey, I'm going to give my couple of words to my brother Mayo.
Brother Mayo.
I greatly appreciate it, brother.
And I know Mayo well, so when I say this, he knows I'm asking you to be brief. This is
I'm going to be brief.
You keep on asking.
Well, he doesn't have to be too brief because he's using his time and he yield his time, so he get a little action. Go, my brother.
What I would say is I'm very happy that we're all here having this conversation, number one. The other thing is that, yes, there's absolutely an obligation on the part of the school district to keep the kids safe. And there can be a financial component if they don't do so. But at the same time, if the school district doesn't do it in the correct way, there can also be a financial component there in terms of liability. So what I'm very optimistic about, especially after listening to Superintendent Smith, and my brother Royce Russell, is that hopefully, and I'd love to participate, if you'd like for me to, is to sit down, let's look at what the best practices are. Let's look at the best ways that exist. And that means scanning everything in the United States, maybe outside, finding out what works, what the parents may be happy with as well, and then coming back and putting together a written policy. Because without a written policy, we can't speculate about whether it's legal, because we really don't know what's happening, how it's being implemented. And then we can put something in place that will endure long after we're not here anymore. And then we can talk about other things, other ways we can help the students in Mount Vernon, how we can maybe look at some things totally outside of this, like job fairs and educational opportunities, mentoring opportunities, how we can bring people into the city of Mount Vernon so that all of our schools in Mount Vernon are, top 10% schools, top 6% schools. And you don't have to worry about where you live. You're going to get a great education and a safe education in Mount Vernon. So did I do my job? First of all, thank you, Brother Russell. And AJ, was I okay? Or did I think I was brief enough?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. I just want
I'm sorry, AJ. I'm sorry. I know there's a couple seconds. I just hope that there's in closing words. I just hope that our K-8 schools aren't in consideration of also pat down searches, because there's evidence of drugs and vapes also at that level nationally. That's it.
So again, I wanna, and I'm imploring all of you, Erica, from the PTA perspective, Dr. Kim, you know, that y'all get together behind closed doors wherever. Brother Mayo has offered his expertise to, in any way he can be involved. Russell knows how to reach out to him. And make sure that y'all get the parents and the community involved. And Brenda has a saying all the time that she says a lot of times. We always talk about what's good for the kids and what we should do with the kids and talk about all of this, and we leave the kids out of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So at some point, I don't know how to incorporate all that. I know it's a big task that y'all have to take to get this to where it got to get. But I hope that Black Westchester has helped bring attention to this, and hopefully y'all will go forward, and you know, we can have another show later about how successful this was and what the plans are from there or whatever, you know. So thank you, Dr. Kim, again. I want to reiterate, in my 10 years, a lot of times the leader does not want no part of this. And I know you were told not to come on here because I got at least 10 calls in your behalf asking me, was I going to beat you up? Literally. So you know, again, this is, you know, of course, in this 2-hour period, there was no way we were going to answer every question. I know there were a lot of questions.
You're eloquent.
Yeah.
You're echoing.
Brother Israel's, that's coming from you. That's why I keep muting you when you're not talking. There was no way that we were going to solve all this in a 2-hour period. It's not a television show, you know, where everything has a happy end. And I hope this is the beginning of a conversation. I hope y'all go from here. And I hope, you know, I helped push this in the right direction. I thank everybody for their involvement and for coming on and sharing, especially my brother Israel Williams, who spoke specifically from a parent's perspective, which I was looking for, and it's great because he called me earlier this morning and that organically happened. But we needed to hear from a lot more parents, you know, but at least he represented a parent who has a child there and what the response was, and even shared some of what his child felt like. I think the feeling that she felt like a criminal was very powerful, and we need to take a lot of that into consideration. So I wish you all well. Black Westchester's here in any way that I can help and be involved behind the scenes or whatever I can do. Thank you all. This has been another edition of Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics Radio Show, episode 413. Celebrating our 10-year anniversary, giving you real talk for the community since 2014. Until next time, peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. Today, and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it.